Hi everyone, I want to work on some literal equations with the variable that you're solving for appearing more than once. This has one step that can be really tricky for people that is going to be useful in other places as well. So this is a really good trick to pay attention to. Okay, so looking at this, again, first thing that's key is just spotting your variable. I'm supposed to be solving for little b. Ooh, and I did this on purpose. Little b and big B are not the same variable, and I want to emphasize that because sometimes people are not sure. And absolutely there are situations where we would name one thing little b and one thing big B, and that is not considered the same variable. So variables are case sensitive. I have more than one b, so I'm going to have to first free them up, little b's, and move them to one side. So they're stuck in a fraction. The freeing up will look like multiplying both sides by the denominator. I don't really have to worry about common because there's only one of them, but I do have to worry about both sides. Okay, so on the left-hand side, really nice canceling, I'm just left with the top, a times little b plus big B. On the right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and distribute because there's nothing to cancel, so I get a times little b times c plus a times big B. And then I need to reevaluate. I don't think I want a different color. I'm looking for little b, and I still have two of them. And they are no longer stuck in fractions, and since I distributed, they're not stuck in parentheses either, but there is still two of them and they are on opposite sides. So my next step should be to go ahead and move them to one side of the equation, and it really doesn't matter which, so I'm going to go like this, minus ABC minus ABC. So you have to be really careful here. AB and ABC are not like terms. AB and 3AB would be like terms, but that C, that different variable, makes them not like terms. So all I can do is write out AB minus ABC plus big B. On the other side, I'm only left with A times big B. So here's what makes literal trickier than any of the other ones when there's more than one of your variable. You can't just add those together so that you get down to a single b. That's our goal, right? We just want one little b. We've got them on the same side, but there's still two, and there's not looking like a ton I can do. So the trick is, in fact, I think I'm going to do one more thing first, but it could be done afterwards. I don't really want the big B there, so I'm going to go ahead and move it so at least I have my little b's as isolated as they can be. So I have AB minus ABC equals A big B minus B. Again, not like terms, so don't try and combine those. Okay, so here's the trick. I've got the b's as isolated as I can. The only way for me to separate off the A and the AC is if I can figure out how to get down to one B. And the trick with that is that you have to factor the B out. So this is something that we didn't see on any of our other types, but it does save our life here, save our solving life here. So factoring that B out, and if you think about it, if you do 2x minus 5x, that's really kind of what we're doing, right? We're saying we'll just add up the coefficients and hook them back to x. And that's what we're saying here too. The coefficients that I have, they're variables, but if we think about them as coefficients hooked to b, it's an a and an ac. So we would subtract ac from a and then we'd hook it back to b. But factor is really important. And really what we've done with that factoring is not just separate b out, but change what the operations are. Here, the only thing being done to b is that it gets multiplied by all that mess. So to isolate b, you just divide by all that mess. You don't have to do it in separate chunks. A minus AC. So I get AB minus B over A minus AC. Okay, things to point out. I was pretty deliberate about not having you do literal equations online homework because the computer gets either really picky or not picky enough about checking answers, and I don't want you to get tangled in that. when you're solving literal equations, you make some choices and they can change the appearance of your answer a little bit, but actually still be giving you a right and equivalent answer. So one choice that I made, was I decided to move my b's to the left. If you had gone through this process but moved your b's to the right, what you would find is that you would have this exact same thing, but all the signs would change. So instead of having a positive AB and a negative B on the top, you'd have a negative AB and a positive B. And instead of having a positive A and a negative AC, you'd have a positive AC and a negative A. And the order doesn't matter on the top and bottom there, but that is an equivalent solution. And the way you could see that algebraically is if you multiply top and bottom by -1, that turns it into the other version of the solution. I'm trying to think what else. Sometimes, depending on the order you use, fractions will be split up. So I don't think there's much that you would do here that would do that. But remember, you could split this into b over ac minus a, minus ab over ac minus a. So there's little algebra things that you can do to check that your solution really is the same as what you're seeing on the answer keys for these. And do check your answers as you go. I think I have keys up. I'll go check. Make sure I have keys up for this one. I know I had them up last week for the other one. Okay, one more. You'll see I picked fraction ones because those tend to be the trickiest, and you have a lot of fraction ones. In fact, they might all be fractions on your homework. We are solving for big D. So when I look at my equation, I see big D and big D, and those are the only big D's right now. So there's two of them, and they're stuck in denominator, stuck in fractions. So I'm going to start right off by finding an LCD and clearing fractions. I have 4 fractions, but I luckily don't have a lot of factors showing up. So the first fraction has a big D. The second fraction has a little d. The third fraction has a big D, so I'm already covered. The fourth fraction has a little d, so I'm already covered. So I'm going to multiply both sides by big D and little d. And lots of distributing will happen here. So I get big D times little d over big D, and plus little b, little d, big D. Oh, I hate it, but I wanted to make sure I did this capital lowercase version stuff because I know that's a mistake that people make in their science classes. I've heard that from science instructors. So then we'll have little d, big D times dx over d, big D. D, big D times 1 over d. No. If I can put that back. Okay. Go away. I don't know what that thing is doing. Little d. Okay. So I'm going to go through and cancel. If you want, you can put those all over 1 to remind you that it's going in the top, not the bottom. So big D's will cancel, and I'm left with little d squared. Little d's will cancel, and I'm left with big D times x. Big D's will cancel. I'm left with little d squared times x. And little d's will cancel. I'm left with big D. Okay, so I freed up my big D's. They're not stuck in the bottom of fractions anymore. There are 2 of them. One here, one here. They're not stuck in anything, so I'm going to go ahead and move them to the same side. I think I'll add big D. So I have little d squared plus big dx plus big D. Again, not like terms. You can't combine. One has an x and one doesn't. Little d squared x. So I can't combine them, so I am going to have to do that funny factoring step again. It's up to you whether you get rid of the little d squared first. I tend to do it just to get the d's as isolated as possible. So I move that over, dx plus d, big dx plus big D, d squared x minus d squared. Okay. So now I'm finally at the point where all I can do, remember you're solving for D. If I was solving for X, this would be easy. I'm trying to solve for D, and there's more than one of them, and I really need to have just one of them if I'm going to solve. So you have to remember, write it down somewhere, give it a big star, this factoring trick. I factor out a D. I'm left with x squared plus 1. And then This is now d multiplied by x plus 1. So to get rid of the x plus 1, I divide. And I have d equals, if you want, you can factor a d squared out of the top. I don't really care if you do or not, but you should be watching, because if you could cancel, if that ended up being an x plus 1 you could cancel, I would want you to try and do that. So you can factor, don't have to, but you should at least look at it and see if you think anything will cancel. Okay, so that's the step up on literal equations. And you have, I don't know, a dozen-ish of those on a worksheet so that you get some good practice on that factoring. And hopefully that will work out well.